Prepare to have your mind blown. We're about to rewrite history and expose the forgotten truth about the ultimate computer pioneer. This isn't just about a woman in STEM. It's about the very origins of artificial intelligence and the digital age, born not from a machine, but from the brilliant imagination of a woman who lived 2 centuries ago. Are you ready to meet Ada Lovelace? Born Augusta Ada Byron in 1815, she was the only legitimate child of the infamous romantic poet Lord Byron. From the very start, her life was marked by contradiction. Her father was the poet of passion and rebellion, while her mother, Lady Anne Isabella Milbank, was a woman of strict intellect, devoted to mathematics and logic. Their marriage was brief and turbulent, ending when Ada was only a few months old. Byron left England never to see his daughter again, dying in Greece when she was just 8. To shield her child from what she considered the dangerous influence of Byron's wild temperament, Lady Byron ensured Ada's education was steeped in mathematics and rational study. She believed logic could counteract the chaos of poetic imagination. Ironically, it was this fusion, mathematical precision with imaginative creativity, that gave rise to Ada's genius. As a child, Ada was curious, restless, and visionary. While other girls were taught sewing and etiquette, she was solving equations, studying geometry, and diving into astronomy. But Ada was not just a mathematician. She saw numbers not as cold abstractions, but as symbols with infinite creative potential. She often described her work as poetical science, merging her father's legacy of imagination with her mother's insistence on discipline. This perspective would later allow her to see what no one else could: the future of computing. Her intellectual journey took a defining turn in 1833 when she was introduced to Charles Babbage, a brilliant but eccentric inventor known as the father of the computer. Babbage had designed a mechanical calculating machine called the difference engine, and later conceived of something even more ambitious: the analytical engine. Unlike any invention before it, the analytical engine was not just a calculator. It was a machine capable of being programmed with instructions, what we now recognize as the prototype of a modern computer. But while Babbage provided the hardware vision, it was Ada who grasped its full potential. At the age of just 17, Ada impressed Babbage with her intellect, earning his respect and eventually his collaboration. In 1842, she translated an Italian mathematician's paper on the analytical engine, but she did far more than translate. She added her own extensive notes, so extensive in fact that her notes were 3 times longer than the original text. These notes contained what is now recognized as the world's first computer program, an algorithm designed to be processed by a machine. For this reason, Ada Lovelace is celebrated as the first computer programmer in history. But what truly sets Ada apart is not merely that she wrote the first program, it was the depth of her vision. While Babbage saw the analytical engine as a tool for crunching numbers, Ada foresaw a future where machines could manipulate symbols, process information, and even create music or art. She wrote that the engine might act upon other things besides number, supposing that the fundamental relations of pitched sounds in the science of harmony and of musical composition were susceptible of such expression. In other words, she imagined that a machine could compose music. Think about that for a moment. This was the 1840s, a time when electricity itself was not fully understood, decades before the telephone, decades before even the light bulb, and Ada Lovelace was envisioning artificial intelligence and digital creativity. Her ability to see beyond the technical, to understand the philosophical implications of machines, was revolutionary. She understood that computers were not just number crunchers, but could become extensions of human thought and imagination. This was not just programming, this was prophecy, yet like many visionaries, Ada's genius was overlooked in her time. The analytical engine was never built in her lifetime, largely due to lack of funding and the limits of Victorian engineering. Ada herself faced skepticism as a woman in a male-dominated intellectual world. Her contributions were largely forgotten for nearly a century, overshadowed by Babbage's more visible role. It was not until the mid-20th century, when modern computing began to emerge, that her notes were rediscovered and recognized for their astonishing foresight. Ada's life was not without struggle. She married William King, who later became the Earl of Lovelace, and together they had 3 children. But she constantly wrestled with illness, ambition, and the constraints of her era. She longed for intellectual recognition, and though she enjoyed moments of influence in scientific circles, she was often dismissed as the enchantress of numbers, a phrase meant both as admiration and condescension. Her health deteriorated in her mid-30s, and she died tragically young, at only 36, from uterine cancer. She was buried next to the father she never knew, Lord Byron. And yet her legacy lived on, quietly waiting for the world to catch up. In the 1940s, as the first electronic computers were built, her notes resurfaced, astonishing a new generation of scientists and engineers. They saw in her writings not only the technical brilliance of the first algorithm, but also the philosophical foundation of computing as we understand it today. The US Department of Defense even named a programming language after her, ADA, a tribute to the visionary who saw the future before it was possible. Ada's story is more than history, it is motivation. She reminds us that genius is not just about technical skill, it is about imagination. She reminds us that innovation is not confined to one discipline, but often born from the marriage of opposites, logic and creativity, mathematics and poetry, science and art. In Ada's life, we see the power of thinking differently, of refusing to be limited by the categories the world imposes. Her vision continues to inspire the digital revolution we live in today. Every time a computer generates music, every time artificial intelligence writes a poem, paints an image, or helps solve a scientific problem, we are walking in the path Ada Lovelace imagined. She saw not only what machines could do, but what humanity could become through them. So what can we learn from Ada Lovelace? That true progress comes not from following the rules, but from daring to imagine beyond them. That innovation requires both discipline and creativity. That the boundaries between logic and art are illusions. And that some of the greatest breakthroughs come when we unite the two. Her story challenges us to look at our own time differently. Today, as we grapple with artificial intelligence, automation, and the future of technology, we are living in the world Ada foresaw. But the question is, do we have the courage to think as boldly as she did? Do we dare to imagine not just what machines can do for us, but what new possibilities they unlock for the human spirit? Ada Lovelace lived only 36 years, but in that short span, she lit a torch that would burn across centuries. She envisioned the first computer at a time when such an idea was nearly unthinkable. She combined the heart of a poet with the mind of a mathematician, proving that the greatest innovations are born from the meeting of worlds. Her life was one of sacrifice, resilience, and brilliance, but her legacy is nothing short of revolutionary. When we celebrate Ada Lovelace, we celebrate not just the first computer programmer, but the spirit of curiosity, imagination, and courage that drives all human progress. She is a reminder that no matter how overlooked or underestimated we may be, our ideas have the power to shape the future. The digital age we live in, the AI revolution unfolding before our eyes, was dreamed first by a woman in Victorian England who refused to see limits where others saw walls. So, as we close this story, remember Ada's lesson. Innovation is not about predicting the future, it is about envisioning possibilities others cannot yet see. And sometimes the most groundbreaking revolutions begin not with machines, but with imagination,